Mic check 1 2. Still. Mic check 1 2. Yeah.
Well, hello to everyone. Thank you for coming today. It's a real pleasure to welcome here my colleague, Mr. Gram, to Admiralty House, and also our Ukrainian friend Admiral Nishpapa to Admiralty House, along with his translator, to one of our nation's truly historic buildings. It's actually 60 years since this building was the official residence of the First Lord of the Admiralty, and it's a real reminder that the royal names really have power behind them. Built in the 1700s, in the following century, this was the actual location for the body of Admiral Horatio Nelson, who himself laid in state here. And in the 20th century, again, right here, the First Lord of the Admiralty, during 2 world wars, was of course one Winston Churchill. So when we think about Admiralty House, we don't just think about anonymous on Whitehall, we think of a living embodiment of some 3 centuries worth of British naval history. Now, the resonance of a name isn't just confined to the Royal Navy. If you consider Ukraine, for example, next year marks 10 years since Russia invaded Crimea. And back then, all that remained between the invader and conquest were 60 crew members of a mine warfare vessel. That lone ship sailing strong against the might of the Russian Navy. And it took a remarkable 3 weeks before the Ukrainian and the proud crew members were removed from that ship. At an earlier stage, that was a ship that was once captained by our Admiral Oleski. Thank you very much for being here today. By then, of course, by then the name of that little ship, the Cherkasy, or Cherkasy, had become a legend, and that legend endured. Verbal finger to the Russians. The brave forces on Snake Island are threatened once more by the Moskva, memorably told the Russians where to go, in unforgettable words that I won't repeat this morning. But that is really no surprise, because it turned out that the soldier who uttered those words also happened to come from the Cherkasy region. And as Ukraine marked its Armed Forces Day last week, its navy could reflect on defiance of Cherkasy-like proportions. If you consider, despite having lost nearly 2/3 of its fleet after Crimea, they've managed to naval headquarters, Sebastopol. They've smashed Russian naval vessels through the pioneering work of sea drones. They've wrestled control over the western Black Sea, and sinking one of Russia's biggest names, the Moskva itself. Ukrainians have proven more than once that their navy is more than just a navy in name only, and we must help them from the water just as it must on the battlefield itself. And that's the only way to ensure freedom, navigation of the Black Sea. The only way to ensure Ukrainian vessels operate free from Russian bullying, to allow unimpeded transport of their vital grain and steel to the 4 corners of the world. Which is why we're going to do 3 things to restore the great name of the Ukrainian Navy. First, we're training Ukrainian sailors. In the remote waters of Scotland, the Navy's been passing on their knowledge and skills, but it's not enough to have sailors. Ukraine must have the ships. So second, we're taking on the leadership mantle of the maritime capabilities. My friend Bjørn and I have been working to understand the Ukrainian requirements. So now before us is a clear roadmap, or perhaps a sea chart, I'd say, Bjørn. To make sure we succeed, we want partners, and we've reached out to those already involved in supporting Ukraine's Navy to become framework nations for the coalition, and we'll be able to say more. Their capability. Today I can announce the UK is gifting 23 on and offshore raiding craft and 20 rapidly deployable Viking vehicles. I can also announce we're supporting Ukraine to procure 2 marine counter vessels from the UK. In fact, back in the summer, a flag-raising ceremony was held to commission the vessels into service. This was something which was planned before the Ukraine was attacked. And the ships formerly known as HMS Grimsby and HMS Shoreham were renamed Genevieve M310 and Shikursky M311. Yes, the Shikursky name has been once again, and it sends a critical message to President Putin. If the Kremlin despot believes we're distracted by events in the Middle East, he is mistaken. This moment is a wake-up call to the West, a moment once again to renew our complete and utter resolve and prove Putin wrong. Because rewarding illegality with victory would send a signal to our allies, but also to the likes of China and Iran, suggesting we're not willing to stand up for international rules, suggesting weakness, suggesting vulnerability. So, securing the seas is the only way to defeat a tyrant like Putin and guarantee the long-term independence and prosperity for Ukraine and for the whole of Europe. Back in 1939, when Winston Churchill returned to Admiralty House, a signal went out to our fleet, saying simply, Winston is back. Today, the Chelsea is back, which a decade ago stood defiant and turned. And it's sending a message of its own to aggressors. Ukraine will rule the waves. Ukraine is back. Slava Ukraine. And now to my friend and colleague, Minister Gram. Thank you for joining us today.
Well, thank you, and dear Grant, good to be in London, and thank you so much for hosting us here at this and I want to start my remarks with thanking you and the United Kingdom. Your leadership in Ukraine has been so crucial, and it has helped us to our part as well. When it comes to the training of Ukrainian soldiers with the operational Interflex, when it comes to supporting Ukraine with the weapons and defense material through the International Fund for Ukraine, and a lot of other bilateral and multilateral initiatives as well, where we have been cooperating closely. And now we are here together again, taking an important step forward in helping Ukraine defend themselves and fight back. And I would like to thank the Union for taking the initiative to create this maritime capability coalition. And Norway is happily a co-lead nation in this important work. We are as determined as ever to help Ukraine succeed, for their sovereignty and freedom, democracy of course, but also for our security, for Euro-Atlantic security. The coalitions being established, we are sending a clear message. We are in this for the long haul. And helping Ukraine to build a lasting naval capability is an important part of this. We will help Ukraine strengthen its naval defenses and improve ability to operate along their own coast. Freedom of movement and open trade routes in the Black Sea is crucial. The United Kingdom and Norway are both seafaring and maritime nations, and together with many other countries in this coalition and with Ukraine, of course, we can contribute with maritime experience, new technology, thinking. This will be a long-term project, and the support will require a lot of work for many years to come, while we at the same time will continue to help Ukraine in the short term with their immediate needs as well. So we really look forward to this cooperation.
Very much indeed, and thank you for taking the time to join us today. Now, I think we've got a video from our colleague, the Ukrainian Defense Minister, Minister Umarov, and if I can just ask both of you to step slightly to the side just so that can be seen.
Dear Secretary of State for Defense Shapps, dear Minister Gram, distinguished colleagues and participants. Early in the war, the Ukrainian Neptune missile sank the Russian-guided missile cruiser Moskva, the flagship of the Russian Black Sea Fleet. We didn't stop there. We developed new tools, naval drones. Our innovative Sea Baby drone carried out multiple successes in the Black Sea. We reached all the way to Crimea and to the Russian Naval Command Center in Sevastopol. We have also used long-range missile provided by our partners with great effectiveness and incredible precision. We have knocked out dozens of Russian small patrol boats, high-speed, and even damaged the Russian submarine. The Russian fleet has seen 15 of its vessels destroyed and 12 damaged. The enemy was forced to relocate its fleets, submarines, missile and landing ships to Novorossiysk. No part of the Black Sea is safe for Russia anymore. With the maritime coalition, we can and we will do more. We need to preserve and expand our achievements. We need to end Russian blockades and restore maritime security from Odessa to the Sea of Azov. We must prevent Russia from dominating the Black Sea again. The Ukrainian people are blessed to have such a reliable partners. We are thankful for your overall assistance and commitment. We're grateful to the United Kingdom and Norway for billions of dollars in military, humanitarian, and economic assistance.
If that has to stop there, we will hold it there, because actually we've got with us today the chief of the Ukrainian Navy, who is going to say a few words to us, Oleski Nespapa, possibly through his interpreter as well.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Although his English is excellent, I've discovered already.
Okay, thank you. Пане міністре, пане адмірали, шановні колеги, дами і господа, я радий бути сьогодні тут, присутствувати на цій церемонії.
Dear ministers, dear colleagues, dear friends, and I'm elated to be today. I'm elated to be on this ceremony.
Мені важко підібрати слова та висловити емоції, які відчуваю зараз як командуючий військово-морський і як просто громадянин України.
And it is very difficult to express my emotions, what I feel now, and as the Navy commander and as Ukrainian citizen.
Яка зараз відбувається в Україні, її дуже чітко пояснено, яке, мабуть, висловили, що багато років тому сер Вінстон Черчилль.
And Winston Churchill, a long time ago, expressed and explained what is going on in Ukraine at the moment.
Росіяни захоплюються силою, і немає нічого, до чого вони мали менше поваги, ніж до військової слабкості.
What Russians admire most is strength, and there is nothing for which they have less respect than military weakness.
І та сила, яка зараз є в Україні разом з своїми партнерами, вона
And the strength which is in Ukraine at the moment with our partners, this will unite us.
Як командуючий, я розумію, що завдяки вашим величезним зусиллям потенціал українських військових сил поступово буде зростати, що дозволить ефективно і якісно виконувати завдання захисту суверенітету України, економіки в цілому.
I understand that thanks to your enormous efforts, the combat potential of the Navy will gradually grow and strengthen, and this will allow effectively protect sovereignty of Ukraine and economy and lives of innocent Ukrainians.
Як громадянин, я безмежно радий і вдячний всім вам за те, що моя країна не залишається сьогодні сама на сам з переважаючим силами противника.
And as Ukrainian citizen, I'm infinitely happy and grateful to all of you that my country was not left alone with superior enemy forces.
Його задача – це фізична України, її культури, мови, традиціям та нашим цінностям.
Whose main aim is to physically destroy Ukraine, eliminate its culture, language, traditions and values.
Користуючись нагодою, хочу висловити слова щирої вдячності всім присутнім учасникам урочистої церемонії за вашу величезну підтримку, завдяки якій Україна продовжить боротьбу за існування.
My enormous gratitude to all participants of Maritime Capability Coalition launching ceremony for your support.
Особливу вдячність хочу висловити Об'єднаному Королівству та Королівству Норвегії, які взяли провідну роль щодо підвищення спроможності українських військово-морських сил.
And I would like to express special thanks to the United Kingdom and the Kingdom of Norway for their leading role in creation of Maritime Capability Coalition.
Якщо в Україні не буде моря, не буде України.
If we lose the sea, there will be no Ukraine anymore.
Море – важлива складова економіки України, і ми повинні зробити море безпечним для всіх.
Is an important part of our Ukrainian economy, and we all together should make it safe and secure.
Саме тому потужні і спроможні військово-морські сили України – це не тільки інструмент стримування агресії Росії, але гарант процвітання економіки та безпеки мореплавства в всьому Чорноморському регіоні. Час, який триває ці підтримка України.
I appreciate a lot that despite the long period of this war, you continue to support Ukraine.
І ви бачите, вже пройшло багато десятиріч, а ті істини, які сказав сер Черчилль, вони є право на існування.
And you see that after many years, after Churchill said these words, they still exist and they're still correct.
Історія нас вчить йти до кінця.
And history teaches us to go to the end.
І ми обов'язково повинні захистити наше море, захистити майбутнє наших дітей.
And we must protect our sea, we must protect the future of our children.
І, звісно, захистити наше спільне майбутнє.
And to protect our future.
Thank you very much.
We have some time for some questions. We'll start with Johnny from the BBC.
Thank you, Jonathan Beale, BBC. I'll use the microphone. I just wanted to ask both ministers, first of all, a question about the real risk of US militaries and economic support to Ukraine dry by the end of the year. Political. Do you both accept that, given that US military aid is pretty much more than double of what Europe has been given, that you will not be able to fill the void if that US military aid stops? And would you both agree with President Zelensky, the First Lady's wife, who says that Ukraine would be in mortal danger? And then, Admiral, if I can ask you a question. I was on HMS Defender when it was in Odessa, where they signed the agreement for the two mine hunters to be given by the UK. It's 2 years on now, more than 2 years on. How are you going to get these ships into with Turkey essentially controlling access into the Black Sea? How are you going to rebuild your navy without access into the Black Sea? Thank you.
Thanks, Johnny. Look, first of all, on US support, look, of course I think it's incredibly important. But a couple of things which, first of all, I was in Austin last week, maybe in the end of the week before, in California, and we discussed this issue. There's still billions worth of aid being delivered. I think this figure may be slightly out of date, but there was $5 or $6 billion worth that was kind of waiting in the pipeline. That's because contracts have been laid from their earlier pledges. There's still sort of quite a bit to be delivered, come what may, regardless. The second thing is, as you know, Congress are working on a bill which is, I think, much more to do with internal US politics relating to the southern border, the Middle East war, than it is actually related to Ukraine. Certainly when I was on Capitol Hill recently, the support from both sides, including the Republicans, Zelensky is actually meeting with the president in DC tomorrow. It's actually the reason that Umarov's not with us today. He needed to stay in country because the president was away. And so no doubt they'll be having, I hope, very fruitful conversations. Fourthly, it really reinforces the importance of this maritime capability coalition. As I said, or suggested in my speech, the way that you is to restart their economy in a meaningful process. And it's really been through those conversations that I've had with Zelensky, with Kubrikov, and with my colleagues that we've ended up with a plan, which is this maritime coalition, which again actually operates under some US further coalitions in different areas as well. And then lastly, though you didn't question to me, I will just comment on the Montreux Convention, because I was in Turkey just, I think also the week before last actually it was. You know, it is clear to me that the Montreux Convention also works to the advantage of Ukraine. There's been a large number of their naval and they have no way of replenishing them. What we're launching today through this coalition, maritime coalition, is both the short-term assistance and aid to Ukraine, the different vessels that we're providing other than those mine hunters, but also the long-term aspects of what would a front-footed, Western, sort of NATO-orientated navy look like. One, the training on these ships and the work that they can do, not just in the Black Sea, is also actually critically important. Of course, the idea of these shifts going across was something from before the war itself, or at least the February 22 war. So you're right to say it's been a long time in coming, and I'm pleased we've reached today's important moment as part of the wider maritime coalition. Bjørn.
Well, yeah, I agree with my colleague here. Of course, United States have been absolutely crucial when it comes to supporting Ukraine, both in military and financial ways, but also when it comes to coordinate the international support for Ukraine in this Ukraine Defense Contact Group, this Ramstein format. And actually is a part of that work, and it's taking that even further. And beyond that, I don't think it's right to speculate too much about what will happen in the United States. So we have to accept and understand that there is a democratic process going on there. But we'll see. I still feel both hopeful and confident that the United States will continue to stand by Ukraine.
I'm answering all the questions. Щоб побудувати флот, треба дуже великий час.
To build a capable navy, we need a long time.
Нельзя зайти в магазин и купить корабль.
Unfortunately, we cannot simply enter the shop and to buy a ship.
І навчитися його використовувати.
And to learn how to use
Це
the ship.
дуже длительний процес.
This is a very long process.
Флот може наповнити двома шляхами, або паралельно, це або закупівля будівництва, або придбання використаних кораблів.
To develop the navy, there are two ways: to buy a used one, to build a new one ships.
Якщо ми кажемо про будівництво кораблів, це мені адмірали не дадуть соврати, це 2, 3, 4 роки на один
We
корабль.
are talking about the building of the ships. We need 2, 3, 4 years for one ship.
Що стосується кораблів, які можуть бути придбані, це потрібна підготовка не менше 1 року.
To existing ships, we need to train the crew up to 6 months
Для того, щоб він повністю готовий застосуватися за призначенням.
in order to make the ship ready to be used in a combat operation.
Тому ця коаліція це не тільки на 1 рік, це на дуже довгий період.
So I believe this coalition is just for 1 year. Is this for a very long period?
Майже ми плани составили до 35-го року.
So we created a plan up to
Що
2035.
стосується безпосередньо протимінних кораблів Черкаси-Чернігів.
Speaking about the sea mentioned MCM ships Черкаси-Чернігів,
Я дуже вдячний Київському флоту, що вони забезпечили підготовку 2 моїх екіпажів, і вони майже готові і майже сумісні з.
I'm extremely grateful to the United Kingdom for doing their best and in training the crews and preparing the ships.
Це 2 корабля, які вже хоч зараз можуть приступити до виконання завдань за призначенням.
These are 2 ships which are ready today to commission.
Все це зроблено завдяки підтримки Великобританії.
And this is all was done due to
Босфор Дарданелли зі зв'язку з дією Конвенції Монтрё.
And as you mentioned correctly, sir, we unfortunately cannot bring them to the Black Sea due to Montreux Convention.
Але повірте мені, як тільки ми переможемо, роботи у них буде дуже багато.
But I am sure, and believe me, as soon as we win this war, they will have lots of work to do in the Black
Зараз
Sea.
Чорне море саме небезпечне зміни небезпеки в Європі.
Because the Black Sea is the most dangerous place in terms of mine security
І
in
дуже
Europe.
багато часу, щоб воно стало безпечним.
And we need much more.
І ці кораблі будуть для цього призначені.
And this ship will do this job.
І звісно, що зараз ми будемо використовувати виключно безпілотні системи і те, що може бути доставлено в Україну без залучення проток Босфора.
So answering your question, for now, for time being, we will use unmanned systems to provide mine security in the Black Sea, which we can.
Lesky, thank you. We only have about 10 minutes, and I want to sort of zip through questions. So I will lead by example by answering them briefly, or maybe you will, because the next question is from Gree from NRK. Gree. Hi.
I would like to follow up on the previous question, and if you can be a little bit more specific, please. If the support from the US is reduced significantly, what is Europe's ability, UK, Norway, the rest of Europe's capability to support Ukraine in the future, in the long term? And also, if I may ask you about the risks connected to this term coalition, what risks does that represent from Russia?
Thanks very much. Will.
Well, I can reiterate what I just answered. I don't think it's right for me to speculate too much on what will happen in the United States. They have been very strong in support for Ukraine so far, and as I understand, it's really a broad support in the Congress as well. Related to this or connected to this, and they will have their process, but what I've heard in the Ukraine Defense Contact Group, there will be so unanimous support for Ukraine from the presidential administration in the United States as well. And but of course we have to do our part. We have to really step up and to this work with these coalitions is a part of this. You know, we are all doing, have been doing for some time, but still we have to see how can we get more out of this? How can we coordinate even better? How can we contribute as a whole even more done? That's the purpose of this.
Bjørn, thanks very much. The other thing I'd say is actually, although there's 3 flags on this maritime coalition, this morning, I think by this evening, you'll see over 20. There are many other countries who are going to be joining us, and I may have just ruined a press release for somebody at the end of the day, but there are further discussions this afternoon. This is a truly global affair. And then my only other point would be to your question about actually genuinely step up and look after its own security. I believe this for a very long time, Ukraine aside. We can't carry on expecting the US to always ride in to the rescue of Europe. I do also think it's in the interests of the US to do so, because they'll want to show one autocrat that other autocrats wouldn't benefit from a similar approach elsewhere in the world. So I believe it's in America's interest as well. But Europe absolutely needs to step up. It's one of the reasons why we're working to increase our military spending as well. Just a few moments left. I was going to ask Dom from Telegraph to jump in. Dom, there's a microphone coming over.
On that last point you said there, Minister, so Britain's been very one of the leading nations the last couple of years in military aid to Ukraine, 2.3 billion each of the last 2 years. Next year's amount is not mentioned yet, but we should expect something similar, I'm sure. Would it be at or above the rate of inflation? And for the hugely violent storm in the Black Sea, how has that degraded Russian defences around Crimea and Novorossiysk, and are there any opportunities there for you to take advantage of? Thank you.
Thanks. I'm going to answer briefly, and we should both answer briefly in order we can get perhaps one more question in. But on the 2.3 billion, yes, you're right, we've done that for a couple of years running. I think now we're into a different phase of the war. It's not just about the money, though we will announce that when we're ready. Of course, the current year still runs till April. It's not just about the money, it's also about the other work that goes on. Things like this capability coalition are absolutely essential to helping to strategically organise things. Things like our UK leading in equipment and training, and always being the first to the punch with those things, and then leading other countries in themselves have a value connected to that. So our stance will remain entirely front-footed. I'm absolutely committed, as I said to President Zelensky, to follow through. We were there before. We'll be there to the end and beyond, as I hope Ukraine's best supporters.
Answer for your question very short. В море бывают шторма, и это не новость.
There is nothing new in storm at sea.
И поверьте, никаких способностей Россия не потеряла после этого шторма.
And I wouldn't say that Russian capabilities were degraded somehow.
Так же, как не потеряли.
The same with us.
Война на море продолжается.
Yeah, the war at sea goes on.
There speaks an admiral. We've got probably time for one more. Tonya from TV2. We have the microphone over to you.
What steps are being taken to address concerns like Ukraine fatigue and donation shortages? And also, if I may, are there any specific restrictions regarding the use of any maritime donations to Ukraine?
Bjørn, do you want to?
Well, when steps to make sure that we have an ongoing dialogue. We are cooperating. We are building structures to not just support Ukraine here and now, but as this coalition is about, also thinking ahead and having a more long-term perspective. This is a way to both signal that we are in this for as long as it takes, but also actually lay a foundation for the help to continue. So, and we have these coordination mechanisms and so on, to make sure that we can continue. And as you know, in Norway we have a unanimous support in Parliament for a 5-year lanzan. One way to do it. So, and also when it comes to being able to support Ukraine, then we need the industry to step up, and we are cooperating closely with the defense industry as well, so that they can produce what need to be donated as well.
Thanks very much. To say, I think the whole world's really impressed by the multi-year. I was asking Bjørn about how you delivered it beforehand. The multi-year support, I think, is incredibly helpful for Ukraine to know that's happened and that's happening. And I think it's an interesting insight for us all. Look, on Ukraine fatigue, what you don't see outside of this room is that we get together every month, I think, and get together in something called the Ukraine Defense Contact Group. Which largely happens behind closed doors, but it's 50 nations around the world supporting our friends in Ukraine. And I certainly haven't noticed any lessening of the desire to help, any lessening in the gifting, any lessening in the so it is the case, you know, there's a war on in the Middle East, there are other things that go on. It is the case, of course, we move into different phases of this, but, you know, Ukraine have shown us that they are very, very capable and aren't going to give in, and we're not going to give in on their behalf. And in terms of, you asked about maritime donation restrictions, we're not applying any. The war is in Ukraine. They can and the Crimea and Black Sea, or parts of it that are theirs, of course. I think we might have just managed to do that in enough time to take one more from Madeline. Madeline at NHK. Hi.
Yes, so I had one question briefly on the situation in the Middle East, if that's okay.
I knew I shouldn't have taken the last.
So I just wanted to ask, you mentioned about the Lime Bay vessel. Has any decision been made about that regarding the humanitarian situation there? And also one other question to the Norwegian Defense Minister. We wanted to ask regarding F-16s sent to, and also when that would be happening. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Well, look, on Thursday last week, Wednesday and Thursday, I was in Cyprus, then Israel and the West Bank, discussing the critical issue of how we get more aid into Gaza. This morning, in part as an upshot of some of those conversations, the Kerem Shalom border between Israel and Gaza. Currently, goods will be checked there. That's good because it's designed for lorries. The goods aren't actually entering Gaza from there, so they still have to route around. So this is not a full solution. The Cyprus part of the discussion is, can we ship aid from Cyprus across and do so in greater volumes and from air, land and sea. Again, since I met the Cypriot foreign minister on Wednesday evening, and then right the way through the weekend, we've been continuing to discuss how aid could be routed and coordinating that with the various different parties. There's no immediate announcement on this. The RFA have in the region are good for these purposes. And I think the international community needs to have the leadership to get it started and then make sure that the amount of aid being channeled in increases dramatically. And that is regardless of the different arguments about ceasefires and the actual war on the ground. What I'm really interested in is ensuring that we save more lives through disease, hunger and other things than we do through kinetic action of war itself.
Yeah, when it comes to F-16s, we don't longer use them in the Norwegian Armed Forces. We have F-35s now, when we are in a process selling 32 of them to Romania. The first 3 was delivered a couple of weeks ago, and we will continue to deliver them. But we are a part of the F-16 coalition for Ukraine as well, and as we speak, there is a training mission going on in Denmark. This coalition is led by United States, Denmark, and the Netherlands. And we are contributing there with the instructors for Ukrainian pilots and technicians. And after New Year's, we also deliver for the Ukrainian pilots. And then we are working on, we have said we are going to donate planes to Ukraine as well. I don't have the exact number yet because we are still, we have to make sure that they are fit for purpose. And as I said, we are selling quite a lot to Romania, but we are going to be a part of this coalition and we are going to send F-16s to Ukraine.
Bjørn, thank you very much. And ladies and gentlemen, we have timed out, but for coming today, Graham, and in particular to Admiral Oleski for being here today to join us. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Good afternoon, or just about good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for coming. As Secretary of State, my focus has always been on delivering for the people of Northern Ireland, who expect and deserve that matter to them. To that end, for a number of months, the UK government has been working to address the DUP's concerns on the Windsor Framework. I continue to engage with the DUP, and as I've said before, these discussions are making progress, but I'm not going to provide a running commentary. Alongside those negotiations, I'm now convening the Northern Ireland Party leaders here today at Hillsborough Castle to talk about ensuring financial stability and sustainability for Northern Ireland. I want to agree the basis upon which the Northern Ireland Executive can return on a stable financial footing. I also want to ensure that public services meet the needs of the people. The UK government is willing to help, but all of these issues can be best addressed by the return of locally accountable institutions built on secure foundations. And I hope our work together over the next few days will do exactly that. Thank you very much.
Chris, will you take questions from us then?
Right, will we just take them all round together again? Yep.
Remember your... Huh? You got my card? What do you call him? Johnny? Was it Johnny or the other? Johnny Coughlin? Johnny Coughlin. He just showed something like that.